had someone like just ram down your throat like this is the only way to eat, or you're eating that and you're a bad person? Like, do you get that?
All the time.
Hey guys, welcome to the Sheroic podcast. I'm Cassey.
And I'm Lisa.
And today we are talking about why people feel like food is a religion.
Yeah. It is like a religion. The way people act when they talk about it is like it's a religion.
Oh my gosh, and it drives me wild. Have you ever had someone like just ram down your throat like this is the only way to eat, or you're eating that and you're a bad person? Like, do you get that?
All the time.
Oh my gosh, why do people do that?
I know. So, well, obviously your life, what you do, your career, everything is around food, health, fitness. And then obviously starting Quest and being a part of that.
Yeah.
Like, it's the exact same thing. So we just thought, how can we go too long without really like just getting down to like, why is food like religion? And then how do you handle it? And how do we actually get better about discussing food without people taking offense like you've just insulted their God?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so crazy because like when I post YouTube videos on fitness, Pilates, like what fashion, like nobody peeps a word about, you know, my form or anything. And like, I mean, I'm really on top of it when it comes to form. I need to be perfect on that. But like, if I say the slightest thing, like if I just so happen to use a few pieces of chicken in this sandwich, or there's a little bit too much carbs for someone in this pasta dish, like people will get on me and get on each other about the way that I'm eating. Like, it is crazy. And people find offense to what you're putting in your body. But I feel like that's so crazy because the thing is, diet is so unique to every person, right? Okay, we're all made up of different genes. We're different people. And because I view medicine as our food and food as our medicine, that means that each of us has a different prescription for what works for us.
That's good.
Yeah.
Did you just come up with that?
I thought of it the other day when I was reading an article.
In all fairness, that was on point.
Should we just stop the podcast now?
Done.
Are we done?
Guys,
okay,
thank you for joining us.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. Like, people don't realize that food is a prescriptive thing. And then they get on people as if they know what's good for their body. Like, you are not the doctor of that person. That person is the doctor of that person.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
So there's multiple things to talk about. one, why do people do it? 2, how do you handle it? And 3, how do we break it? Right? So let's start with number 1.
Okay.
Right? Like, why do you think people do it?
Okay, I think food...
And I'm actually going to shut my laptop.
Okay, you're going to shut your laptop.
And put it down because I want to so focus on what you're about to say.
I think food is amazing, right? It's emotional, it's cultural, it brings people together, and apparently tears people apart too. And so I think it has a lot of emotional weight in people. And also I think when people find a solution for themselves, they're very passionate about it. So maybe it comes from a place of wanting to help someone else get better. But the problem is what works for you doesn't work for somebody else.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's assuming that I'm eating a certain way to get a certain result.
Right.
Right.
Yes,
So that's like, hey, I'm a real, like obviously coming from Quest, we're all about high protein.
Yeah.
So I eat high protein a lot. I also do a ketogenic diet. I'll explain that later. But that's assuming, okay, I'm eating protein because I want to gain muscle, and someone comes along and says, hey, you shouldn't eat whey protein, you should have soy protein, right? There's that one debate, which we'll go into.
Yeah.
But then there's the other debate of like, what if I don't care what I eat? What if I just eat on whatever? And you've got the people that want to keep hounding or food shaming them.
Food shaming is a thing.
Of, hey, you shouldn't be eating that, and then they start judging other people.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll talk about the like, hey, you should try this, and like people really believe it. But what about the people that like just give opinions but to people who don't even ask for opinions?
I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't like it at all. I think there's 2 ways to look at it. If you are really watching out for your friend and you see that they're being unhealthy and their health is deteriorating because of it, then yes, give your opinion, but be open-minded about it. Someone is not going to take the advice unless they're ready to take the advice, or else it's just going to feel like you're dragging them across the room.
And makes them feel like they're not worthy,
it makes
right?
them
Like,
feel
am I not good
bad?
enough? And you're trying to
Right.
change me?
Exactly. So I think the best way to educate someone is to help them experience what's so great about, you know, being vegan, being paleo, eating low carb. Like, have dinner with them. Don't even hound it on them. Let them experience it for themselves and discover what you find so amazing for themselves. Because the worst thing you can do is to keep telling people this is how it is. That's not how you learn things. You learn things through experience.
Right. And that person has to be willing to want to listen.
Exactly.
Right? Because it's literally like going up to a Christian and telling them, someone who's very content with their religion, right? Goes to church, is, you know, a good Christian, and then someone, you know, like Jewish, Greek, Arabic, whatever,
right.
going up to them saying, no, you need to try this. It's like, look, if they're content in what they believe in, like, you don't have to be preaching to them about what you believe. Now, you can discuss it, right? Like, and I think that's a beautiful thing about what we're doing is let's discuss it. Like, we're not even saying one thing's bad. I have my own opinion of what works for me, what I'm looking for. But as a general overall, why not be able to discuss it without getting offended, getting into an argument, feeling like you're either bullying someone or you're being bullied?
And offensive-ness comes from not understanding on both sides. I think open-mindedness is where if you really, really want to convert someone to veganism, for example, like help them understand. Don't hound them down. I mean, I just said that, but like I have to keep saying it because it happens to me all the time.
So people come to you a lot. I know the vegan community is very big. Part of your, you know, your kind of your world. You have a lot of vegan fans. I don't get that world because obviously coming from Quest, we're all about protein.
Right.
We use whey protein, and so but I don't judge people who are vegan, right? If that's what you choose, if that's how you feel, if it makes you feel amazing, like, I'm so excited for them.
Right.
But I'm not willing to do it. But I'm not willing to, like, tell them they're wrong.
Because no one's right or wrong when it comes to food. It's your own health and you're in charge of it. Here's the thing with the vegan thing. Like, I've been eating vegan food, like, my entire life. Like, I love brown rice, tofu, and asparagus. Like, that's my jam.
Wow.
Like, I love that, okay? And then when I got into eating more paleo, when I was doing the bodybuilding contests and stuff, you know, I ate lots of meat and lots of vegetables. And then I've tried being pescatarian. I've probably tried being vegetarian. Like, I've tried so many different diets.
Why have you tried different diets? Is it for different specific reasons?
The truth is, when I was younger, I was trying it because I wanted to find my best physique. Okay. I wanted to get skinnier and that sort of thing. So I was trying all sorts of different things. But as I'm getting older, I realize I'm trying different diets because I'm trying to find the strongest version of myself in terms of I want to have the most energy for when I am doing business, for when I am going to my hot yoga class or I'm weightlifting. Like, I want to feel so invincible and I want food to help me get there. Instead of food being a hindrance, like, oh my gosh, that's like 150 calories. If I eat a couple of those, oh my gosh, I'm like almost done with my like caloric intake for lunch. Or, you know, I don't want to think about that way because I've been there. And I really just want food to be my fuel. And there's so many different ways you can do it. My body has changed a lot over the past few years. And it's always very healthy, too, to change up your diet, to try different things, because I don't want people to be closed-minded and say that this is good or this is bad unless you have tried it all, right? I think that's very important to do. You experiment it for yourself before you hound it down someone's throat, / don't hound anything down anyone's throat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason I think we really did call this episode, or like we're referring to it as Food as Religion, is some people get so defensive over the way they eat.
Yeah.
That, you know, I've seen it on YouTube, I've seen comments, I've been in discussions with people where they legitimately get offended if in a discussion I say, well, actually, like, I've read or I've seen, or they legitimately get offended that I'm not even questioning, but like really just discussing it, right? Because like I always want to learn. Yeah. So if there's a new type of diet out there, or if there's a new way of eating, like, I'm super curious. It doesn't mean I'm going to do it, but I'm super curious. And I think that if you allow yourself to be open to being changed, and maybe you don't want to be changed, but being open to other people's opinions, then it just doesn't become this like dogmatic battle. And that's like the one thing that I struggle with, is that people literally won't, like, at least the world that I come from, some people literally won't even talk to you, right?
Oh,
if
yeah.
like you're like a meat eater,
Right.
or
Right.
you know, and I don't know how to deal with that, because I wish, like, if you're vegan, honestly, and I don't want to just to say vegan, right? If you're paleo,
Right,
like
right.
whatever type of diet, vegetarian, whatever type of diet you choose, like if that makes you happy, I'm so happy for you.
Yes.
But just like religion, don't force it down my throat.
Like, help me understand. If
Right.
you want to convert me, help me understand.
Right.
Yeah.
And then approaching it with an open mind and like,
Yes.
wow, I didn't know that about this. And, you know, yeah, so like being at Quest, like we have spent honestly millions of dollars
Yeah.
of the company to explore foods. So even the whey protein, people ask why your bar is so expensive, because we've done so much research on whey protein and we make sure that we only use the best, right? And look, if you don't want to pay our prices, that's totally fine, but we won't reduce the quality of the whey protein we use just to make an extra buck, or you know, to reduce the cost. So we really do believe in what we do, and we believe in the ingredients we use, and we spend a lot of money behind the scenes with science, really figuring it out. And we don't have the answer, right? The way I think of it is like space, right? Once upon a time, they thought that the Earth was the center of the universe,
Yeah.
right? Like they didn't even know the universe existed. They
Right.
thought Earth was flat,
Uh-huh.
right? But with new discoveries, they're starting to realize just how expansive the universe is, and new planets, or things that we thought were planets and aren't, and the, you know, solar systems. And it's like we're always developing the technology to discover the new things. And so I
Yes.
think that that's like food. It's like we still don't know.
We don't know, because literally every year or two, the scientists are saying different things, right? Like in the 90s, it's all like low fat,
Right.
and then now it's like no sugar, and then it's gonna be like no animal meat, and then high protein, and then low carb, and like all, and then chew your food like 50 times before you swallow it. I mean, there's like so many different things, and it's always changing. So that's why I feel like rely on your own body, rely
Yeah.
on your own experimentation. When I did the 28-day reset, which is my program for finding out what your food sensitivities are, I took out 5 things from my diet for 28 days, right? I took out dairy, gluten, processed grains, added sugars, and alcohol. And I don't call this a
You
diet.
did that all at once.
All at once,
Okay.
28 days. I noticed that my skin started clearing up. I noticed that I started having more energy. And then as a nice side effect, I started losing a little bit of extra fat, so that was cool. And then after the 28 days, you start slowly adding in one of those things.
Okay.
A little bit at a time, to see which one actually affects you. So when I added dairy back in, my skin started flaring up. I started getting acne. And I've been fighting acne my entire life. So if the one thing I have to do is take out dairy from my diet, I'm going to do it, because I don't want acne.
Sure.
It doesn't make me feel beautiful, and it's irritating, and I just don't like it. I also noticed that gluten, too much of it, makes me bloat up. And again, that doesn't make me feel light and strong. And so that's something that I try to avoid. The other things, you know, too much added sugar will give me a headache, but I'll enjoy my dessert once in a while, you know, YOLO, live your life, and that sort of thing. So by doing this program, I figured out what works for me. And here's the thing, Sam, my boyfriend, he's Eastern European, and so he can eat as much dairy as he wants, and it does not affect his skin. But I had like a matcha milkshake the other day when I was in Singapore, and I flared up with this huge pimple on the side of my nose that lasted 8 days with pimple cream, and then it finally flaked off, and I was like, I made that decision to have that milkshake, and it was awesome, but I know that when I have dairy, I'm going to get a pimple. So I think, like, if you have a strong reason for yourself why you're going to eat something, why you're not going to eat something, at least make that decision by yourself and know what it does to you. And if you're willing to deal with that. But I also don't think people should feel guilty over what they're eating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I totally agree on how like different foods can affect your body, right? And how what's going to work for me is not going to work for you. You know, I do high protein during the week when I work out, and then I do a very, very high fat diet called a ketogenic diet on the weekends. Helps me with inflammation. The studies that we've done at Quest, again, we've spent millions of dollars just looking into the ketogenic diet and how fat affects you. And the effects of fat on the brain, and how actually it's helped people with seizures. So like there's all these new studies coming out about the health benefits to a ketogenic diet. Even like they do, they're testing on like astronauts and deep sea divers, because anytime that the brain will take pressure, so if you go up into space, the pressure of that, and then if you go deep sea, the pressure of that, they actually notice that those people on a ketogenic diet can go more intense.
Oh, wow.
Because of it actually does help with inflammation. Now, this is all scientific facts. Right now, there may be new science that comes out down the road with new technology that identifies that, oh, well, it actually wasn't the fan, it was actually this part, and this is why it happened. So like ever being dogmatic about like the science of something, I think you can only really speak to what's been done now. But if you close your mind off to anything, then you can't then, like you said, like back in the day, fat was bad and sugar was great, and now sugar's bad and protein's good. And so it's ever evolving.
Super.
So putting that aside, and then also putting aside the fact that, for instance, you know, what's going to work for me may not work for you, and vice versa. Why do you think people shame other people for the foods they eat? Right? Because that's not a like, oh my God, like it really worked for me, right? Like what you're saying to me, like, oh my God, dairy, like I can't have dairy, it brings me out pimples. Now I'm thinking, I just came up with a pimple like a week ago. I wonder if it was dairy. And literally as you're talking, I'm processing in my head, like, did I have dairy? Like, was that the cause of my pimple? So it's great. Thank you for telling me that. I'm now going to pay attention to it. But why do people shame people, right? Like, I get vegans, I get vegetarians. They may say, look, there's cruelty to animals.
Right. It's a moral aspect.
It's a moral aspect, which I get to an extent. I get that there are certain situations that absolutely, like, I think that the way certain animals are treated is, you know, we need to change that.
Yeah.
But for instance, culture, I think, plays a big part in food. So for me, I was brought up Greek Orthodox. My family came from a tiny, tiny village in Cyprus. Tiny village. My grandfather was a goat herder. He would milk the goats. My grandmother would take the milk. And literally, I remember going over there in the summers and seeing this. This was their living. So she would take the milk from the goats and she would make cheese and she would give it to our neighbors. And the village had like 50 people. It was in the middle of nowhere, in the mountains. And this is how they lived their entire lives. We had chickens, and my grandfather, in the morning as a kid, I would walk with him to our chickens and I would see like how many eggs did they lay and was there enough to feed the family. Now, if obviously we wouldn't starve because we had a car and so we could drive out of the village and go get food. But thinking about like even, you know, before I came along, like my father, that's how they lived, right? So to think about like you shouldn't eat meat or you should, and you know, I hate to say it, but I had seen, because they needed to eat, they literally got a chicken and cut his head off.
I've actually seen my mom do that.
Really?
When we went back to Vietnam. You have to defeather your own chicken. So I don't remember because I was so young, but maybe they were like pouring hot water over it or something like that so that they could pull off the feathers. And then you literally like slice off its head. And to be 100% honest, if I had to kill my own food, I would totally not be eating meat. So I think that the convenience of being able to eat meat makes more meat eaters, perhaps. But I don't know. Personally, like I want to talk about my own diet and like what I'm eating now, and I want to get into yours too, because it might help people understand like how different we are and how what works for one person may not work for the other, and blah 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 blah. So like I said, I've tried paleo, I've tried all that kind of stuff. At the very moment, like right now, I am trying to take out more meat from my diet just because I find it sometimes a lot more effort for me to eat more of a paleo lifestyle. I don't know why. It's fun because you get to go and have Korean barbecue and hot pot and ribs and all this stuff and just have a salad on the side. That's fun. But then I really, really miss having my childhood food of like tofu and rice and asparagus or green beans. And so just recently, it's been a couple months now, I've been taking meat out of my diet, and my skin seems to be clearing up a little bit more. I feel energetic. And in fact, I don't feel bloated. I was afraid that by having all these extra carbs that maybe I would start to balloon up, but it is not the case.
What made you try this, by the way?
What made me try? Oh, actually, this is the truth, okay?
Yeah.
I had a magazine cover shoot for Shape magazine in Singapore, and I wanted to do something
Congratulations,
different.
by the way. That's absolutely amazing.
Thank you. And I wanted to try something different. And the one diet I haven't like 100% committed to was a vegan diet.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, well, let me just give this a shot. Let's see what it does. And in the first few weeks, I really started to notice a positive change in my body. And I noticed that it wasn't hard for me to do, which is so important for me because I don't have time for things to feel like they're taking extra effort when I'm putting so much extra effort into every other aspect of my life. And so by going on this vegan diet, and I'm never going to say like I'm a vegan or I'm a vegetarian or whatever, because if I choose to have meat or I choose to have fish once in a while, like I don't want to be like blamed for being like a bad whatever you're labeling me as.
You lied.
Or
You said
lied,
you were
like,
vegan and I just saw you have cheese.
I am simply not eating meat right now or that much meat right now, and it feels good, and let's just see what happens. And who knows, maybe I'll go back to paleo next month. Like I don't know, but I don't ever want to label myself and feel like now I have to be a role model of that religion. You know what I mean? I'm just going to be me. I'm going to be Cassey and eat what makes me feel good for the moment. Right now, I'm experimenting with vegan foods, and I think it's really fun. I love cooking vegan food.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And have you noticed so you've noticed the difference in your skin?
Yeah.
You noticed the bloating.
Yeah.
Have you noticed any cognitive changes?
No cognitive changes, just that I don't feel restricted. I think that's the main thing. And also
on this diet specifically, or
yeah, actually, eating on a vegan diet, I don't feel restricted. But I think the coolest thing though is that I don't feel cravings.
Oh, okay.
It's very interesting. I don't know why. I don't know if it's like certain hormones in the meat or whatever. I'm just speculating now, but like I notice that when I'm eating meatless, I'm actually really full and I'm not thinking about food all the time. And I know you've dealt with like bikini competitors and people like that who are eating on the dot every like few hours and these tiny little meals. Like now I kind of just eat like 2 or 3 times a day and I have my meal and I'm super satisfied and I don't get hungry. And to me, that is a huge discovery and freedom in my life to not be thinking about being hungry all the time. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the fact that I'm eating more carbs. Like, who knows? But so far I'm doing this and I kind of really like it.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you? I know you have a very interesting process where you're switching off of a couple different diets.
Yeah. So I've had major digestive issues for the last 2 years. It was getting to the point like I was really high protein, but I was like almost 0 carb and really low fat. And like that was my thinking back then, is like the more protein you eat, the more muscly you're going to get. And so, which I have now discovered is not the case. And so again, just like an evolution, like I actually love discovering what is working and what is not. But in that process, anytime I started adding anything other than protein to my diet, I'd get stomach upsets and stomach aches. Yeah. And then one day I ended up getting a stomach flu and it totally derailed me to the point where I could barely eat. And months went by and I literally, there was 4 ingredients that I could eat. It was lamb, pork, salt, and coconut oil.
That is crazy.
I ate the same thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And every time I ate it, my stomach would still hurt. But I got to that point because I kept going to different doctors.
Yeah, and this wasn't just Lisa's stomach hurting. Like, this was, like, critical.
Oh, yeah.
And I want you to explain it so they understand, like, the severity of this.
So initially I had got the stomach flu. I went to the doctor. They're like, oh, you'll be fine. And then I tried to eat, couldn't eat. I would get stomach cramps, wouldn't be able to stand up. And then the next day I would wake up and my entire digestive system, my entire stomach would protrude out.
Oh my gosh.
Literally protrude out.
Was it like gas?
It was trapped wind. It was inflammation of my intestines.
Gosh. Wow.
So literally to the point where it felt like my intestines were inflamed.
Oh my gosh.
And everything I ate, imagine, when you've got a burn on your hand or on you, and then you rub your hand over it or you pour hot water on it. I mean, you know how much that hurts?
Yeah.
That's what would happen every time I would eat.
Oh my
So every time I would eat, my entire digestive system would just be in pain and agony. I couldn't stand up. There were days I couldn't take a shower because I couldn't stand up for longer than 5 minutes to actually shower.
Oh gosh.
So I would go to all these doctors, and every time I'd go to a doctor, it's like anything, right? Oh, this is your problem, right? You go to an allergy doctor, they're going to tell you everything you're allergic to. So sadly, I paid attention. I mean, look, I get why I'm going to a doctor. He's giving me advice. But I would go to an allergy doctor and they'd give me a massive long list of all the things I was allergic to. And the list was a lot of foods I would eat. So it was eggs. It was vegetables. Okay, I cut things out. Oh, I must be allergic. That's the problem. So I cut those out. Didn't help. So I went to a different doctor. Okay. They did like a lactose test and they're like, oh, yes, you're lactose intolerant. So I cut out all dairy. I cut out cheese. I cut out everything. So every time I would go to a doctor, they'd be like, oh, this is the problem.
Okay.
So that's how I ended up getting down to like 4 different pieces of food that I was like, I can eat this and still function. So I was going to work at Quest every day, running the media department on belly. Imagine like trying to drive a car with no fuel. And this was going on for months and months, and I was just losing weight. I couldn't work out. I literally couldn't do any stomach things. I couldn't lift weights. I was feeling dizzy all the time. And I even had to swallow a camera pill.
Oh,
so it's literally a pill that's a camera.
Did you see the footage?
I didn't see the footage.
Oh, I'd want to see the footage.
But I had all these patches attached to me, and I swallowed a camera, and you have to let it go through your digestive system. You carry like a big pack on you, and it takes photos every like 3 seconds, and it takes 3. So imagine a photo every 3 seconds for 24 hours. It becomes like a little video.
Yeah.
And it's got like a little light in the camera, so it can actually, and then you'd hand over the box back to your doctor, and he'd watch the footage, and he'd see if you have any polyps, like they checked me for Crohn's disease. I mean, they checked everything came out negative. Eventually, they tested my blood and they said, you have an autoimmune deficiency. And your immune actually affects your digestive system. So what we want to do is we want to replace your immune system by giving you a blood transfusion.
Oh, wow.
For 6 months.
Whoa.
They were going to implant me with this little thing. And at home, I would have to plug myself in once a week for 6 months and basically change out my immune system.
What?
And so it was like the last resort. I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. And then my husband, Tom, went to his business partner, Ron, who runs R&D, and basically was like, my wife's about to have a autoimmune, or a transfusion. What do you think? And he was like, no way. Like, we need to talk about this. So those two sat down. They brought the R&D department together. Literally, they sat down and they came up with a plan. And so they took my gut biome test. They did all of that. And they said 30 days. They said, Lisa, in 30 days, if we can't fix you, go and have your transfusion. But give us 30 days, because they believed they could change it with diet. And so they made me my own probiotics based on what I was missing from my gut biome. And they put me on a ketogenic diet. And it literally was high fat. Because part of the problem that they had predicted was I am so inflamed. My digestive system is so irritated. Imagine having third degree burns all over your body and it not healing. And you having to take a bath every day. Right? So they're like, we have to fix it. We have to bring down the inflammation. We have to give you substitute foods. And within 2 weeks, I was able to eat like twice as much as I could.
Oh, wow.
Even now, as you know, I still have digestive issues. There are certain things that still irritate me. But the ketogenic diet literally saved my life. Wow. And so you can imagine when we're talking about food and talking about preaching, right? How much I want to preach to people about the ketogenic diet. But I recognize this is my experience with this. And other people may not. So I eat super high fat meat.
So let's talk about, like, what's an example lunch or dinner?
So depending on what ratio you're trying to get to, my usual meals would be really, really high fatty meats. So like a filet mignon's too low in fat. So it'd be more of a ribeye. And then you coat it with butter, you put some bacon on, and you have guacamole and you have cheese. Now, people are like, wow, that sounds like an amazing diet. It really is. Like, it's delicious.
Yeah.
But of course, like anything, like high fat, it's really high calories. So
it's really easy to overeat too.
It is very easy to overeat. But my problem is I can't digest a lot of food at once. So now imagine I'm having like 3 bites of a food because I can't eat too much, because too many calories all at once upsets my digestive system. But I have to stay high fat. So so it gets a little tricky, but it is super high fat. And so things like dairy, things like butter, things like cheese, things like bacon, things like lamb, like all these foods that a lot of people are like, that's terrible, you shouldn't eat it, blah, blah, has actually saved my life.
And that's the amazing thing. Like, all of us are so different. And just because you didn't have that experience with butter or dairy, like, doesn't mean that it isn't good for somebody else.
Right. And that's why when people are like, look, it's really cruel the way they treat animals and stuff, that's where I do understand it, like, and I do get it. And so I try to be somewhat conscious about, you know, where I buy my food from and cage-free eggs and things like that. But ultimately, like, it has truly saved my life. And so that's why I feel really strongly about this subject, because look, I'm not preaching to anyone, I'm just telling you my experience.
I love that. And then everyone listening, take what you can from it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so people who will then judge me, like, how could you do this? It's like, look, guys, if you don't understand where someone's coming from, right? It's, again, like religion. If you don't get what this religion has brought to this person, like, don't tell them they're wrong. Like, it could be meaningful. It can make their life better. And so even if you don't agree with it, at least be compassionate and understanding that everyone has free will. And, you know, like, let's stop labeling people. Let's stop saying that what's good and what's bad. Like, for instance, your diet that you do, I would never do it. And look, in fact, I shouldn't say I would never. I just caught myself. Like, I should be very open to potentially doing it if I had an issue and I felt like it could help me. But it's not my natural inclination to do that diet. But, like, I've never once preached to you. I've never once said anything about, like, because from when we talk and you tell me how much it's changed and how much it's really helped you, like, I just want to stand up and applaud, because my biggest goal is Cassey okay? Right? Like, is she healthy and happy within herself? And so if the answer is yes, why do I care what you believe in? Why do I care what religion you are, what sexuality? I don't care about any of that, what food you eat. Like, it comes under that that bucket, that category.
Exactly. And I think that's where the open-mindedness is, to understand that we're all coming from someplace different.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you do with your fans then, when, like, do you go and explain to them, like, because obviously, like I said, like, we're trying to break the mold, right? We're trying to break the pattern of people criticizing other people for the way they live or the way they eat. With your fans, when people, like, they truly love your workouts but they don't agree with you with diet, do you address that with them directly? Do you just stay quiet?
Here's the thing. Food and nutrition are so finicky, right? Like, even if I don't address this specific comment on YouTube under a Cheap Clean Eats food video, another fan or other people will start fighting each other already in the comments. And it's just so hostile. And it's always the worst when somebody is coming in with research, right? Like, I read this in this book and this is what I know. And then somebody else calls them stupid or ignorant. And it's just like, I don't understand why people do this. I don't know where this passion for imposing your thoughts and feelings and beliefs on someone else really comes from. I don't like that behavior at all. So once in a while, I'll go in there and try to explain, like, hey, everyone's diet is different because we're all different, right? Generic statement, pretty much true for everybody, right? And I also like to say, eat as whole as you can, right? As natural as you can. Cook if you can, so you can know what's going into your food. I think that's an overall generic statement that I 100% believe in, because I live that way. But when it comes to fighting people who don't want to be open-minded, it's kind of a losing battle.
Yeah.
It's like I try through my videos to help people explore different diets. So yes, sometimes I will show vegan foods, vegetarian foods, paleo foods, low calorie foods, and all sorts of different foods, right? Foods that are easy to make for lunch and to go, and like all sorts of things. And
You're Switzerland.
What was that?
You're Switzerland.
I'm Switzerland. Oh, cool. I'm Switzerland. And the thing is, I cannot please everyone, and I know that. I just feel like I always get the most complaints when I'm using meat. Like people are always complaining about that. And so I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out what to do. All I can do is help expand people's minds to allowing other people to eat the way that makes them feel the healthiest. Yeah.
Well, so you did Cook and Clean with Quest.
That's
and that's
right.
actually how we first met. So you came on, you did a cooking show with us. And I remember discovering, as we're putting all these recipes together, discovering, Cassie doesn't eat chocolate.
Oh, that's right.
So here we are, a food company.
Yeah.
Chocolate is like the biggest selling thing, right, for women out there. Like, you can't not do a recipe for chocolate.
Yeah.
And so I remember us having that discussion, and on set, so we've got all these recipes. I don't know if you remember this. We had all these recipes, and there was a chocolate thing, and you're like, look, guys, I don't eat chocolate. And we were very honest on the show. You even said, like, I'm not eating chocolate. Oh, I can't eat chocolate.
Yeah.
And so we, on the spot, came up with a different recipe. But literally, so it was like, okay, well, look, the girl doesn't eat chocolate. Let's respect that, right? Instead of forcing it down your throat.
Yeah, because that would not happen.
That would not happen. Which, again, just respect the other person, right? It's like, I would never ask you to do something that you're not comfortable doing.
Yeah.
So respecting her and going, okay, but how do we solve this issue?
Exactly.
And that's where you were like, well, what if I took the strawberry bar instead, and instead of the chocolate bar, instead of the chocolate drizzle, I put strawberry drizzle. Right. So my co-host at the time, he'll eat the chocolate version and I'll eat the fruit version. We're like, perfect, great.
Yeah.
And again, it was just like, look, instead of saying we can't do this or we can't do that, we found a solution.
Because you always can find a solution.
Right. And that's kind of like what you're doing with your recipes, where you're basically saying, look, like, here's recipes for the audience. Right? If you eat like this, here's something for you. But hey, vegans, I'm not going to like basically push you guys out. I respect you too. So here's a recipe for you. Hey, meat lovers.
Right.
If this is how you believe, then I'm going to respect you too. And that's what I love about, like, you're just like that in general with when you're around people. Like, you're very like open-minded and just open to like whatever kind of comes your way. And like it's sad that certain people can't see that, and instead they jump on and start arguing with each other.
Yeah, I don't like that. I really don't. I think the problem with food as religion is so much more than the food. It's about the open-mindedness. That's what it comes down to. So we need to look at ourselves, and if we're starting to get really defensive or offended or anything about this, like, look at who you're talking to, understand where they're coming from, and look at yourself and what you're doing to make other people feel a certain way. And if we're not helping each other to become better and to become stronger, then we need to really think the way we're saying stuff and where this intention is coming from. Because if you really want the other person to become healthier, you'll do whatever it takes and figure out different ways to really get that message through to them. And it is not yelling at it in someone's face. And that's the problem. I kind of feel like it sounds like those people who stand outside of the concert arenas with those like big signs. You know what I'm talking about? Like, you're going to go to hell because whatever. The picket sign people. Like, that is so ineffective to me. I don't know why people do it. It makes me go like, ugh, like, what are you talking about? So like, I feel like, again, like I said in the beginning, help them experience what you're experiencing and let them decide for themselves.
I think that's it though, right? People feel like I need to have a voice. So I'm going to scream as loud as I can. I'm going to be as harsh as I can so that I'm heard. And so I kind of get the wanting to be heard part. Right? Like, everyone has an opinion and everyone feels their opinion's right. Yeah. Right? So maybe it's like, look, instead of being harsh about it, if you really want to be heard and you really feel like you've got a valid point, how do you bring them in and allow that person that you're talking to come with it with like open ears? Right.
I think like the immediate response is like, if I'm the loudest, I'm going to be heard the most. But that's not the case. Right. It really isn't. There's different ways to spread a message. Yeah. Honestly, I feel like this is in a ideal situation, right? If we can just all sit down together and have a big buffet and explore all different types of food and let's just see how we feel afterwards. I mean, like, food is supposed to bring people together, not tear them apart. And I hate that it's doing that right now. I feel like people are just too much about it. It is just too much. I just can't. I just want everyone to understand that it is different and unique to everybody, and it is your own personal journey. So you cannot judge someone if you're not in their body. Like, you just can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people feel empowered when they believe something very strongly.
And I think that's great, but don't make someone feel bad about it.
Yes.
That's it.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. Like, feel empowered, awesome, believe in what you do, fantastic, like, be passionate, amazing, but don't try and convince someone by bullying them.
No.
Right? And I kind of feel like it's like a bit of a bully thing.
It's totally a bully thing. And then when you get a bunch of them to gang up on you. Yeah.
So, like, if people can just change the way they react to it, because it's not even change your belief, it's change the way you react to it, right? Change, like, if you really want someone, like, what is your goal? And I always say this in business, in fact, like, what is your end goal? And then act accordingly.
Yes.
Right? So if your end goal is to convince someone, great, fine. If you want to convince Cassie that she needs to be vegan, great. But let me tell you, shouting at it and being abusive is never going to work. So what is your end goal? To change someone's opinion. Great. Think about human beings. What do they want? They want to be loved. They want to be accepted. So and handle it in that way.
Exactly. And if you're going to be shouting at someone at it, in fact, it drives me away from your message. So it does the exact opposite. So really think about it. If you really want someone to convert to your style of eating, think about the way that you're doing it. The execution is just as important as the intention, I think. And I just quickly want to go back to the whole chocolate things, because if we have any new fans listening,
of course,
I'm not like some weirdo that isn't going to eat chocolate because it's like unhealthy for me or whatever. Actually, I really wish I could eat chocolate, but I'm a super taster, and a very small percentage of people in the world are super tasters. And what this means is that I have extra, what do you call them? Taste buds in my mouth where I can really taste the bitterness in certain foods. So for me, the last time I tried so hard eating chocolate was a Milky Way bar when I was in first grade, because all my friends are having Milky Way bars, and I really tried to eat it and, do it commercial style where the caramel kind of comes out, and I just spit it out, and I hated it so much. I couldn't do chocolate milk, and couldn't do Oreos. To this day, I have not had chocolate ever since that Milky Way bar in first grade. I also don't eat arugula, because it's so bitter to me.
Really? I didn't know. Have you done that super taster test? Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't.
There's like almost like an ink. I wish I knew what it was so I could tell the fans. I'll look into it, guys, and I'll like maybe post about it or something.
Okay.
But it's something like an ink or a piece of paper that you literally put in your mouth. And depending on what color your mouth turns, it literally tells you like if you're a super taster or if you're not.
Oh, interesting. No, I've done the test for cilantro, because there's some people who eat cilantro and it either tastes like soap to them or it tastes like cilantro. I love cilantro, so it doesn't taste like soap to me. And it was actually a strip test like that.
Oh, maybe it was a strip
maybe
test.
It was that, but it was for cilantro specifically. So yeah, that is my quirkiness with food. I just can't eat chocolate, and I envy people that do.
I feel bad for you. Like, it's so, and I actually have one of my friends gets severe migraines when she has chocolate.
Really?
Yeah. So like again, like every time Quest comes out with a product, that's the first thing I look at. Like for you and her, I'm just like, oh, I hope they can eat it, and I get excited or disappointed if you can or can't.
Wow. Yeah, my taste buds are really weird, because I don't know if I ever told you, but I was like, wow, could Quest just make a bar that tastes like just bread? Because I feel like that would be so amazing. I'm like, I love extreme flavors. Like, I love spiciness. I love Asian flavors. There's just so much going on. But I also really love bland, just bread. That's awesome.
What's interesting, I don't know why it just hit me when you said it, but people don't necessarily judge people as much if food's part of their culture.
You know what? That is so true. That is so true. Because if you do, then all of a sudden it becomes a racism thing. Yeah. And you know what? Do you think that this food as religion thing is actually a first world problem?
100%.
An American problem, in fact?
I don't know if it's just, no, I think it's probably worldwide.
Worldwide?
But You're absolutely right. Because going back to what I was saying about my dad in the village, right?
Yeah.
No one judged you. You had to eat.
You're just trying to survive.
You're trying to survive,
Yeah.
literally. So it's like no one thought like, oh man, you just killed the chicken. It's like, oh, you've got a chicken. Can you share it? Because my family's hungry today.
Right.
Yeah, there was no shaming of food.
It is because food is hard to come by.
Yeah.
You are so right. Because within the past couple years, like everybody's all of a sudden intolerant to gluten now, right? You know, like it's, I don't know. I want to say it's a trend thing. It's trendy to be gluten-free. It's trendy to be vegan, at least in metropolitan areas like Los Angeles.
Right.
There's like a ton of vegan restaurants around here, and I love them. I go to them all the time.
Right.
I love how creative you can get with eating with just vegetables and meatless things. I think it's awesome. But if you are doing it because you want to be trendy, or you're doing it to fit a certain type of mold, then I don't think you're doing it for the right reasons.
Right.
Do it for your health, or do it for the animal cruelty, or whatever you're doing, but like, don't do it for the trend.
Right. And that's the one thing, like I actually started a low carb diet because of the trend, right? I started when the Atkins came out.
Yeah.
So I didn't go really high protein until we really started Quest, and I started understanding more about protein and diet and things like that.
Yeah.
But I went low carb because of the Atkins, and I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Like wow, like it really works. And so I was eating a lot of artificial things, because back then it was just like Atkins bars and Atkins food, and so like, and then I started getting really bad stomach upsets, and I couldn't understand why. And it was because I was substituting all the sugars for everything artificial.
Yeah.
And so like I totally fell into that trend. So, you know, even now, like I'm still low carb, but it's not a trend anymore. It's because I've tried different things, and I've discovered what works for me and what doesn't. And being on a ketogenic diet, my carbs have to be almost at zero.
Right.
And so I made that transition from starting as a trend to then really realizing this is what's just good for me and how I function. And so yeah, it's kind of interesting, that transformation in that.
That's true, but you made it more than that. It became because of your health.
Yes, 100%.
And clearly you've been through a lot with your gut bio and stuff, and you found a solution, which I'm so happy to see that you're getting healthier every day, because it was really hard to first of all not see you during that time, because you didn't want to see anybody.
No, I didn't.
But you were suffering and hurting physically.
Yeah. And like the reason why I didn't want to see anyone, and I've apologized to you and some friends of mine who I basically kind of just not purposely cut out of my life, but like I didn't have any energy, and so I was still going to work because I felt very obligated to the company, to my husband, to my team. I just felt very obligated, and you know, I don't give up, so I'm like, I can fight through anything. But that was every piece of energy I had was going to work, and I couldn't eat out. So I literally for like a year had home cooked food, and as I said, like 4 ingredients that I remember one time I tried just pepper, like the seasoning is in. I put a bit of pepper on my food. My husband almost rushed me to the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
And so now I just felt trapped and emotional. And that's another thing just about food, right? People get an emotion from food.
Yeah.
And so I personally, obviously, I guess naturally, found myself, the less I was eating because I couldn't, the more down I felt. I felt really sad. I felt, I don't want to say depressed, because I want to respect the people who truly are clinically depressed, but I absolutely felt an emotional low. And so in that, I knew that I wasn't much company. So I didn't really feel like I wanted to reach out to people and be social. And it's like, where are we going to go for dinner? I can't eat out. So now here I am taking my own food with me to dinner. Everyone's enjoying it. I feel badly about myself. Right? So it was like this vision. So yeah, we literally didn't see each other for like 8 months or something. But
I do love that it brings kind of like the bare bones of the situation. Like food is energy. Like you needed to eat in order to feel healthy enough to work out, to see me, like to see your friends. And so for anyone like feeling guilty about food or religious about food, or like at the end of the day, it's fuel. Okay. And it's fuel to help you live your best life and to help you be around the people that you love. And so if you're making food anything more than that and using it to make people feel bad or hurt other people in different ways, like that's just not the right thing to do. It's really just fuel, and it's love. I think food is love.
Yeah.
I don't think it's hatred.
Yeah.
It's not about that. If you're going to twist things around, you're going to make it hatred, but it's not about that.
Yeah.
No.
So it's just really about how people approach it, I think.
For sure. I think my message, and I think our message with this particular episode, is please be open-minded. Allow people to have their own self-discoveries. If you are so excited about the way that you're eating and the cool things that it's done for you, explain it to people. Let them experience it themselves. But please do not put things down people's throat and make them feel bad about like not seeing it the way you see it, because it's going to take time.
Right.
Yeah.
And even if they never convert, why does that define them?
Exactly. And aren't you always still gonna love your mom?
Yeah.
No matter if whatever way she eats.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sometimes I look at my mom and I'm like, why are you eating all that kind of stuff? But it doesn't make me love her less. Like, so
Right.
don't judge people by the way that they eat.
Right.
I
And I
like
think
that.
that being online allows that disconnect from it being a human being.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's true.
So like
That's
you
true.
like it, you just saying your mom like really
Yeah.
hit home for me, because
Yeah.
it's like you don't judge your mom based on that one thing. Right, you
Exactly.
base it on the fact that she loves you and she's a good human being, and like
Yeah.
all the things that she's been through. Like you have that connection, and I think that if people online and in social, or even just amongst yourselves, like if you can see people as much more than just what they eat, right?
Yes.
Like as human beings, that they've got these other sides to them where they could be really good parents, they could be an amazing daughter,
Yeah.
they could be a great employee or a great boss, like all these things about that person that could be amazing, and you're tearing them down for the one thing that you don't believe in. And that's really how I feel about religion, right? Where it's like just because they believe in something doesn't make them a certain a certain way. Like we're so complicated as human beings.
Exactly. And the thing is, on a high level concept, because I don't want to get into the nitty gritty, but religion is there to help us all become better people, right? To help unite people together. And if you're using that love to create hatred out of it, that's like so not the point. And like, just see that, like step back and see what you're doing. That's all I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
back to love, and
Yeah.
like we've bonded, and we guys, you're gonna hear this a lot from Cassey and I about these wonderful mushrooms that we keep bonding over at this restaurant
at Boa.
At Boa,
Love these
yeah.
mushrooms. They're so good.
But like we truly bonded over it, and now
Yeah.
it's become a thing between us. And so like things like that, where the beauty of food and
Yes.
the bonding that food can bring, like let's not use it to rip each other apart.
Yeah.
Right, let's use it as a way of learning, discussing, bringing us together. You know, when people celebrate, what do? They go out and have great food. They have a cake on someone's birthday.
Yes, yes.
Like if you can just switch it anytime I think you're feeling like you really want to like bring someone down, or you just like disagree with someone, just look at the positive, look at how good food can make people feel, and then just look at like that they're more than just that.
Exactly. Wow, I'm so glad we did this episode.
I know.
I'm glad. And I feel like we can even go into more branches of this episode in
100%.
terms of like food and guilt and eating disorders and all that sort of thing, body image. And I think we're probably going to get into that on the
Yeah.
Sheroic podcast. But Lisa, thank you for your thoughts. As always,
Of course,
always
you too, girl.
raw, real, and
Yeah.
yeah, I feel good.
I do too.
I feel good.
And I'm actually hungry now. Let's go eat.
Yeah, let's go. We haven't had those mushrooms in a long
We
time.
haven't.
Why haven't we had them
Let's
in a
go
long
do
time?
it.
Yeah, let's go do it.
All right, guys. Well,
Yeah.
where we go to have our mushrooms, you guys need to be
Sheroic.
Sheroic.
Bye.